Welcome back to the news channel of Nghe An Newspaper and radio and television on YouTube platform. Here, we share and interact about the hottest and newest issues that the public at home and abroad is interested in. And here are some notable contents.
On September 15th, in an interview with The Guardian, Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski said that Moscow had used harmless UAVs to test the reaction of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, through a gradual escalation tactic to avoid provoking a full-scale response from the military alliance. According to Polish TVP, Mr. Sikorski's comments were made on the sidelines of the annual Yinta European Strategy Conference in Kiev, where Ukrainian and allied politicians discussed the country's future prospects after 3.5 years of full-scale conflict. Mr. Sikorski confirmed that the drones that violated Polish airspace were capable of carrying explosives. However, he stressed that what was interesting was that they were all harmless, and that this suggested to me that Russia was trying to test our response without causing conflict. Poland's air defenses have been criticized for being unprepared for the incursion out of the 20 or so drones that entered Polish airspace. Only 3 or 4 have been confirmed to have been shot down with the help of NATO allies based in the country. The Polish military responded that in deciding which targets to shoot down, the ultimate factor was the threat to civilian lives, followed by the value of property that could be damaged in the attack. That Poland's foreign minister agreed with this approach. Mr. Sikorski said the drones had failed to achieve their targets. Property damage was minimal and no one was injured. If this had happened in Ukraine, by Ukrainian definitions, it would have been considered a 100% success. Mr. Sikorski said that if the incursion had resulted in Polish casualties, the VAV response would have been much tougher, but he declined to say what effect that would have had on Russia. Sikorski stressed that the intrusion could not have been a mistake, given the number of drones deployed. Sikorski said he could believe that 1 or 2 missed their target, but 19 missed in just one night for 7 hours. Sorry, I don't believe that. Meanwhile, on May 14th, Investya quoted the Russian permanent representative to international organizations in Vienna. Mikhail Ulyanov added that after the Polish side's accusations, the Russian Defense Ministry had requested consultations, but the Polish Defense Ministry was not ready. According to Ulyanov, this looked like a provocation or a misunderstanding that the Polish side did not want to clarify. Ulyanov also added that despite the lack of details about the incident, Poland had rushed to the conclusion that Russia was trying to destabilize its country. On September 14th, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said that the country's army had entered the border districts of Sumy province, where Russian forces have been trying to establish a foothold for months. The Ukrainian leader claimed that there were also positive results in the border area of Sumy province. Ukrainian units are continuing to advance towards the border. Zelensky said that Russian forces had suffered significant losses on the front line in Kharkiv province, including Kobyang, as well as Donetsk province. We continue operations in Dropolir, a town north of Bo, where Russian troops have recently made deep advances, he added. The important thing is that we are repelling Russian attacks. After pushing Ukrainian forces back from the brink, Russian troops advanced across the border and took control of several villages in Sumy province in an effort to establish a security buffer zone there. Russia has repeatedly attacked cities in Sumy province, including the province's capital of the same name. Russia continues its slow-moving offensive in the Donbass region, including the provinces of Donetsk and Lugansk, claiming to control more residential areas almost every day. Denis Pushilin, the head of the Russian-appointed Donetsk province, said that the country's army is advancing in a pincer movement near the city of Boko-Ro. Earlier, according to Ukrainian media, the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Service GUR, in coordination with the SSO Special Forces, deployed a very complex earthquake to disrupt traffic on the Russian Orion Railway. A Ukrainian source said that this railway section is an important supply line for Russian units fighting in the Kharkiv and Sumy provinces. Earlier, Russian railway workers discovered a number of mines on the Maloa-Konjan-Gazanopka section of the Orion Sea Line. The Russian National Guard sent a bomb disposal unit to the scene. After a mine exploded, 2 soldiers were killed and 1 seriously injured. On the night of May 14th, another attack targeted the Sitbur-Pskop Railway. Ukrainian sources claim that a locomotive was derailed and 15 fuel tank cars were destroyed in the attack. Ukrainian sources say that due to the damage to the railways, Russia will face a serious logistical challenge that will significantly affect its ability to launch an operation against Ukrainian forces.
According to Western officials, Russian missiles currently do not leave any safe zones for the entire European territory. Explaining this situation, NATO General Secretary Marat said that in current conditions, the concept of European defense thinking based on the provisions of the eastern flank has proven to be outdated. Mr. noted that the latest Russian missiles can destroy Europe within 5 to 10 minutes after reaching their destination because there is no safe place. If someone thinks that living in London or Mador is safer than in Tallinn or Vilnius, this is not true. NATO General Secretary called on the countries of the North Atlantic Military Alliance to consider themselves as an eastern flank because the danger covers not only the neighboring countries of Russia but the entire bloc, without exception, is threatened. Mr. Rutte emphasized that it does not matter where anyone lives. The Russian military-industrial complex has made everyone equal enough. Russian missiles can reach everywhere. The threat is growing every day. There is no need to imagine that it can reach the Dutch king. We used to feel safe. We thought we were very far from Russia, but in fact we are very close. The NATO Secretary General concluded that the latest Russian missile technology means that the distance between the LVA on the front line and the Luxembourg, Hague or Mador is only 5 to 10 minutes. That is the time it takes for a missile to reach these parts of Europe.
On September 14th, U.S. President Donald Trump continued to mention the issue of sanctions against Russia, saying that he was ready to do so but that Europe must also act in a proportionate manner. Reiter quoted the U.S. leader as saying, "Europe is buying oil from Russia. I don't want them to buy oil. The sanctions they are imposing on Russia are not strong enough. I am ready to implement sanctions. But Europe will have to increase its sanctions to match what I do." According to Tintas, speaking to reporters in New Jersey, Mr. Trump added, "The negotiations between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky with the participation of the United States in the framework of the trilateral meeting will take place relatively soon." Mr. Trump said he may have to directly participate in negotiations to resolve the conflict in Ukraine because the leaders of Russia and Ukraine do not like each other, the Natrang boss added. "The business between Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Putin is unimaginable. I don't know anymore. I think I'm going to have to say everything they don't like about each other." A day earlier, President Trump announced that he had sent a letter to NATO member states calling on them to stop buying Russian oil and impose major sanctions on Russia to end the war in Ukraine, announced on the Chia platform. "I'm ready to impose major sanctions on Russia when all NATO member states agree and start doing the same, and when all NATO member states stop buying Russian oil." Mr. Trump also proposed that NATO as a bloc should impose tariffs of 50% to 100% on China to weaken China's economic influence over Russia. China is one of the countries that buys a lot of Russian oil. According to the Center for Energy and Clean Air, NATO member Turkey is currently the third largest buyer of Russian oil after China and India. Other members of the 32-nation alliance, including yes, and Slovakia still buys Russian oil.
According to the news agency, the Ukrainian General Staff is evaluating the possibility of shutting down or significantly reducing the speed of mobile internet during airstrike warnings. The goal is to limit Russia's use of Ukraine's telecommunications network to support UAV attacks. A source in the General Staff told the news agency that while current measures are sufficient to prevent Russia from exploiting the communications infrastructure for UAVs, the situation could change and require additional defense measures. The source said that shutting down mobile networks is reasonable depending on the specific situation. In some cases, slowing down mobile internet speeds may be appropriate to limit the operations of UAVs, especially drones. FPV is often used in sensor attacks. Environmental Chief Andrei Hernatop also confirmed in an online video broadcast on Novinil on May 14th that Ukraine is considering limiting the quality of connections in some areas instead of completely shutting down mobile networks. Hernatop said that this is not a matter of cutting off mobile communications, but rather limiting the quality of the connection. such as reducing 4G and 5G speeds so that the modems installed on the UAVs cannot access the networks of Ukrainian telecommunications service providers. According to local media, cutting off high-speed mobile internet is a temporary measure to deal with UAVs equipped with cameras that transmit images, which require 4G connections to operate effectively. A source in the Ukrainian military also explained that the effectiveness of these measures depends on the type of UAVs used by Russia. Cameraless drones do not require much bandwidth, while camera-equipped UAVs require high data transmission speeds, making network restrictions especially important to neutralize these devices. The proposal was made after Fedyenko, a member of the Ukrainian Defense Committee, said that the government was considering a series of measures to counter Russia's notorious UAVs. These include identifying the SIM card installed in the UAV, disconnecting it from the mobile network or internet, and calculating the possibility of disabling the SIM card. The mobile connectivity restriction is seen as a new step in Ukraine's electronic warfare efforts to counter the wave of UAV attacks that have increased since the start of the war. While cutting off mobile networks during airstrikes could affect civilian communications, Ukrainian officials believe it could severely disrupt Russian military operations, which are seeking to exploit Ukraine's own infrastructure to strike back.